Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 22 of UK League Chat. We've had a little bit of a break. I think it was like in the middle of EU Masters was our last episode, and had a bit of trouble trying to get someone on, and we haven't really spoken about it, but I think we kind of missed the boat on that one now. Anyway, so never mind. We've got with us today BTXL's new mid laner, Hatrixx. Hatrixx, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good, mate. How about you?
I'm doing very good. So let's just kick right off. So you've just joined XL. We know. I think it was actually. I don't know if it was confirmed, but it was like leaked or rumored during the EU Masters that Special was moving up to the main roster. That obviously left a space on BTXL. Um, I just want to start with just how you kind of came to being on the team, because obviously you've been in playing in the Spanish league, I think, for a couple of years now, on one or two different teams. So what was it, or how did it come about that you came to BTXL then, rather than maybe a different Spanish team or a different ERL?
Uh, well, first of all, I know a lot of people in Excel, so it was really natural for me to get in contact with them. I didn't have to, go through other people. I could just approach people and start my own conversations.
Hmm.
Uh, Plus, I've obviously heard a lot of good things about their facilities and their work ethics and all this stuff surrounding it, which I really value a lot compared to other people, I suppose. So for me, it felt, for me, it just made sense that Excel would be the place for me to go.
Hmm.
Just straight off the bat, I didn't really have any second guessing about that one.
Cool. I did wonder if maybe there's something with Deadly. He's obviously played in Spain. I think was it even you that I saw someone a picture of, like, was it you and him hugging or something like that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, me and Dad have been friends 4 years,
Yeah.
so I know the guy well. We played a lot together and hung out and partied and shit like this. So,
And now,
but
yeah, another chance then. Are you going to be? Because I know the team has been like all together in London before, and I think they were playing out of the Twickenham facility. So are you
hmm
going to eventually be moving over to here then?
yeah, I'll be going to London eventually.
Okay, cool. So is that kind of just like a whenever we can? Obviously, there's restrictions and everything at the moment.
No, I have dates. Like, we obviously want to be together um when we start scrimming.
Mhm.
I think it's just way more productive. Online reviews, spending all day on Discord. Like, I don't think it's very productive compared to, being there. So, I'm going over as soon as I can. I
Okay, cool.
don't. There's no restrictions, so it's just about setting a date.
Mm, cool. Um, so I guess does that mean you've not really been having many scrims or anything so far? Because I'd wondered if you'd had any involvement with the first team at all, because when we had Swiffer on before, and he mentioned that they do have some, like old practice or even warm-up matches with the LEC team, and I wondered even just the fact that Young Buck is a part of the team, if that was even a draw. Obviously, quite like a prestigious coach in Europe, whether that was a reason that you thought about joining as well.
For sure, it's a part of it. I haven't seen how Young Buck works, like personally, and I've come to learn that I don't really trust other people's opinions. In esports, a lot of people have said this coach is bad, this coach is good, and I've gotten the complete opposite impression. So I don't really get influenced by coaches like that. But for sure, it's a factor, right? Like, he's super successful, and there's a reason for that. Also, I've spoken with Swiffer. Uh, he's an ex-player, he's mid laner. Yeah, good for me. Um, but he sounded like a really genuine guy, and I just the way that he talks, not the stuff that he says, but the way he like talks to other people and stuff, I've really come to respect it pretty fast, and yeah, I have a lot of faith in this coaching staff for sure.
Overall, then, I'm just wondering, like, what are kind of your goals and ambitions for then this split coming up with XL? Because obviously, unfortunately, what happened is kind of what seems to happen all the time in the UK scene is that XL just lose to Fnatic at the end of the day. So is this the hope that this is actually going to be the change to actually do this? And also, like, is this kind of in a way a little bit of a redemption for you in the sense of you didn't make it to EU Masters with Mad Lions, and so is this kind of your shot to kind of prove I can make it to EU Masters with this solid side as well, especially, and go further than that. So what's kind of like your goals and what you feeling to going towards this move?
Uh, for me personally, like the goal is LEC, right? I'm playing on these academy teams. Part of the academy teams is kind of trying to contest for a main spot. Usually on a lot of these teams, there's a huge gap. A lot of the XL players are good, and I think Special is really good too. But I want to work closely with him. I want to, push him up. I want him to push me up, stuff like this. So that's kind of the main idea. As for EU Masters, I'm obviously really confident with this team, right? Like you said with last split, we didn't qualify to the main stage. I didn't mind it that much, honestly. Obviously, it sucks losing, but I was kind of happy about my own performance that split and how I played in the end. So for me, I feel like I did everything I could. So even though we could have gone further, I like tried my hardest. So for me, that was enough, right? And that's just what I'm gonna keep doing now. And I feel like the results kind of come naturally when I think of it that way. I don't really pressure myself to achieve things, and I don't really slack off. I just kind of go day to day, and then things just happen eventually. That's just my view on it. Obviously, winning your Masters, playing LEC, all of this big goals, but it's not really something I focus on. But I think we have what it takes for sure.
Cool. And I suppose what you say about maybe you're trying to push for the LEC spot, XL is a team that have been willing to do that before. Or even I know it was like when Ferndog was their coach, was more like pushing for a 10-man roster kind of thing. But even since then, obviously we've seen like Mickey's left and Special's been given the chance to step up in that place. So I mean, it makes sense. Out of any of the teams, they are clearly willing to take risks like that. So yeah, it makes sense in that sense, I think.
Yeah.
Talking about the split coming up, so BTXL are going to be in this new league, the NLC. That is kind of obviously, it's going to be the first split, the joining of the UK league with the Nordic leagues. I just wonder, kind of even before that, having played in Spain for a couple of years, and obviously the Spanish league is one of the bigger ERLs, and I think the UK's been kind of some way off it, especially in terms of viewership and whatnot. I just wonder, what was the kind of general thoughts on the UK league for someone that hadn't been involved with it before? Perhaps even thinking sort of before you thought about joining XL, what is like kind of the outsider's view on the UK league?
Well, I mean, I tend to watch every single national league, but I've kind of found myself only watching Fnatic and XL at this last split. The feeling I've had from it is kind of the same I've had from the Nordic League. You have 2 to 4 decent teams, and then the rest are kind of, I don't want to sound rude, but kind of irrelevant in a competitive sense. So I think I mean, I've enjoyed watching it because, it's the only other English casted stream, or it's only English casted for European leagues, so I watch it, but I never looked at it as a super good league, no. It was only ever like 2 teams that I would watch to, pick up on what they're doing, stuff like this. Nothing more. As for like Polish, French, I think there's a lot of good teams that I spend a lot more time watching.
And so, do you think then that it was the good decision to kind of merge these two regions? Because, if you say if you had like 2 good teams in the Nords, and then if you had 2 good teams in the UKLC, then in essence you should get at least 4 good teams out of that, which is a good a good competitive like split, especially if what we're thinking is that there's going to be around 3 EU Masters spots, 3 or 2, probably around that number. So, do you think that this then provides more competition, and do you think that overall that the league will help you as well become a better player by going into this new league?
I think for sure it's a good decision. I think they were kind of suffering from the same problem that the Spanish league had the last split. The rules where you need 3 residents and 2 imports, right? That's something that was, for example, enforced in Spain. Before you could get 5 imports, and if you got them a working visa, then they counted as residents, right? But now they enforced this rule, and teams took a hit, right? A lot of people who could play before just suddenly couldn't play anymore, and that in turn made teams invest less, pick up younger rookies, which is good for the rookies, right? A lot of people got to shine, like Movistar's jungler, Elioya. He was like some random kid who's been popping off, right? So in that sense, it's kind of good. But the reality is you get these worse national players, and then when you have 2 import spots, you try and import the best you can, right? But then they look at the roster and they go, yeah, not really don't want to really join that, and that's kind of how it's been in the UK, I feel like. And kind of the same in Nordic, to be honest. So I feel like merging them, or the big thing is like allowing UK residents and Scandinavian residents to be natives, right? I think that's the big thing, and I think it's going to increase the level a ton.
Because especially if you say that some of the other leagues are tightening the restrictions a bit, because everyone knows, especially like Denmark, for example, with like half of TSM's team is always Danish. Like, there's just so many players come from Denmark, so many top quality players.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose if it's harder to move into other regions, and then they've got this now seemingly bigger region back home, it might be a bit more incentive for some of them to stay. That might even help the NLC even more to have the stronger teams like we're talking about.
Yeah.
And hey, and what it does as well, sorry to butt in, but what it can also do is it can also help with UK talent as well. So Deadly's a big example. Like, Deadly wasn't in the UK scene last split because he knew that the competition wasn't there, and he went to Spain. And so this will bring some UK talents also back, some of the best UK talents who, because let's be honest, if you were a really, really good UK talent, you weren't in the UKLC for that long. You were kind of either going into like the LEC, the LCS at one point, or you were going to Spain and to other regions. And hopefully that brings them back as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same reason why even if I had like a super good offer, I wouldn't really join the Nordic League, right? But now it's way more attractive because, like you said, more resident slots means better players get to stay, and then better imports, and then it just it's a good snowball effect.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I think it's gonna be. And we've already seen some decent rosters coming up now, like Riddle with their Senkook stocks and all this, right?
Yeah,
so it's gonna be exciting.
as well, is it in the jungle? Is it
Yeah.
Max in the jungle? Yeah.
And then like actually I don't remember who they had bought, but there was some Rehe or something. So there's decent rosters. I think it's really cool.
In terms of the rosters, I think because there's not been many like properly confirmed yet. Riddle, Ents was yesterday. I think they confirmed their roster. Obviously, Excel.
Oh, what was Ence's? I was at a summit, so I didn't get to actually see Ence.
I'm gonna pronounce it like an idiot, but top lane is it Nilly?
Yeah, Nilly.
You say Hatrixx. It sounds like you know it.
Yeah, well, I know the top lane and jungler, right? It's Nilly and Taiki.
Okay.
And they're decent players.
Yeah, mid lane Simply. I think I've got to get that right. ADC Kevo, and then Seth. I think that is support.
See, this is new for us as well because we're learning all these new names because we've just been covered the UK scene. I heard Kevo, I was like, yeah, I know that one, right? So I'm learning 4 others now, and we're expanding our knowledge as well at this point. So it's what the casters must have felt because when I don't know if you knew, but when the casters obviously went from the UK and they started doing joint in the Nordics and the UK for DreamHack, they basically only knew last minute, and so they had to learn all these players' names and you do everything like that. And I'm feeling a little bit like that at this point. I was like, I'm seeing these rosters, I'm like, okay, there's 2 which I know, 3 which I need to research. I'm hoping that there's a little bit more familiarity. But I guess that shows kind of the strength of what the scene was if we're seeing brand new names, names from other ERLs coming from elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just talking about rosters, so those are the only other 2. Those are the 2 that have been probably confirmed. XL doesn't look like many changes. Yourself coming in, obviously. We've heard nothing from Fnatic, but being the other academy team, I think they probably wouldn't make changes. I think we would have maybe heard by now. I'm not too sure. Either way.
I mean, we've got the saddest news though, if we're being completely honest, and that is the fact that Kerberos has gone to UOL. Every time on that demise roster, I was like, but Kerberos is the carry. This guy is great. Yeah, I loved talking about Kerberos in every single episode, and now he's gone to Germany. So I'm guessing we're doing the Prime League podcast, is it, every Tuesday? But yeah, no, I'm a bit upset to see Kerberos leave, but fair play to him. UIL's a good org, so hopefully he does well.
Yeah, we'll wait and see if we see him in the EU Masters, so you can talk about him again.
And then we're just praying for Mummus, I think, at this point to stay there. Stay.
Yeah, but yeah.
What do you think is the mid lane talent like Hatrixx then overall? From obviously you don't know the full rosters, but from what it was last split, like probably I would say like the one of the strongest positions was actually in the mid lane, in terms of you had Magic Felix, you had Special, and then you had Ericsson and Adept as well, who seemed to also do very well. So what did you think of like the mid lane roster beforehand, and do you think it will improve even this split?
Well, obviously, like you said, I think both Special and Magic Felix were really good. Magic Felix is just Scrim God. Like, he's so fucking hard to play against this guy. And Ericsson, Norwegian. Fucking, let's go, mate. Played against him in the Norwegian league when I kind of played it for fun. And then I got to Scrim against him more recently. And, he's improving a lot too. I'm not sure where he's playing, but I hope he ends up sticking around in the NLC. And then you have Senkux coming in now, right? I think he played in Russia last. I didn't get to watch him, so I'm unsure. But obviously, this guy was really fucking good as well. So I'm really excited. Still remain to see like what kind of players are gonna show up, because like you said, not a lot of teams have announced anything yet. But just from those four, it's solid, right? It's good.
Yeah, it's already
So
solid as it is, and the fact I think you've got like you're getting more name recognition. So like playing like Senkux, when that was actually announced by Riddle, I was like, okay, this does actually mean quite a bit when you get like kind of someone with name recognition, and even someone like yourself as well, someone who a Magic Felix. So you're getting these players now who are coming in. Magic Felix kind of because he stayed, but getting these players who are coming in who've got more name recognition, and you can kind of even more casuals can kind of even know where. Obviously, there's rumors of a certain top laner from England maybe coming to the NLC, but that's not confirmed or anything like that. So, and he's obviously a well-known. Oh, it's Max, and he's a well-known name. But
yeah, I've heard those rumors too.
Basically, I look at LEC Wooloo. Shout out to LEC Wooloo.
Yeah.
All these rumors which come through. And then I love seeing the rumors, and then love seeing the retweets from the orgs, basically flaming those rumors, and then 3 days later they've announced them, and it's like, okay, they're flaming them because it's true, and that's it.
Yeah, Dark Horse, that guy. I wonder who he is.
Might be
A
Merkblood on
legend.
it.
Well, it's like pretty accurate, I think, as well, a lot of the time.
Yeah. It's like the Esports Maniacos, the Spanish
Yeah.
talk show. I don't know how they do it, but they know everything.
It's like
So-
our Jacob Wolf.
Yeah. I mean, they're often faster than Jacob Wolf too,
Yeah, well,
on like
'cause-
major news.
yeah, because I remember there's like a few like in the last off season where they would be first, and then when Jacob Wolf would break it, he had to say like via Esports Maniacos or whatever, like had to give him the credit because
Yeah.
they're quick. One thing I want to say that obviously we're talking about a lot of the rosters aren't confirmed. There are some rumours. I don't know. There may be a bit more that you know behind the scenes. Is there any in particular that have stood out as ones? Because I imagine XL would be aiming to win the NLC. I think that's a fair guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's the goal, of course.
I can't wait to get Swift on and be like, yeah, well, we might not be trying to win it because we'll go second and then we'll win EU Masters or something like that.
So who would you think would be, from what you've seen, or actually there may be stuff that you can't say, but is there a couple of teams that you think could push for you for that spot? Or would it just be Fnatic or?
I'd say Fnatic, yeah. I mean, honestly, you'd be surprised how little rumors I've heard regarding the NLC. So I probably don't know more than you guys. But yeah, I think Fnatic are the strongest. I think they're a good team, like overall. And then you have Riddle. Of course, some players are weaker than others, but I think, for example, Maxilo, when he was on NIP a year back, like this guy was so good. I couldn't beat him. Senkux is a super solid player. I think Doxy is fine. And in the bot lane, they've been all around. I think they're going to be a good team too. We need to see what Noravin. I think Noravin probably will have one of the stronger rosters, I suppose.
I think. Well, this is just from LEC Wooloo again. I think I remember seeing something about Ericsson sticking with Nordavin now. I don't know. I think that's probably where I would have seen it. But that's the only thing I can remember from seeing theirs. But even then, if they're building a team around Ericsson, or if they're all that kind of caliber, that would be a decent team as well, you'd imagine.
Yeah, it makes sense too.
In terms of XL, and again, where there's maybe not been many scrims, it might be a tricky one to answer. But do you think much of like a change in play style now that you've joined, or would it be kind of just, you know, fill in the shoes of Special? Because XL had this kind of style of, you know, kind of leave, not necessarily leave him out to dry, but Sendo would kind of hold his own top, and then
Yeah,
you'd kind
bless
of
Sender.
create, and then seem to like create a lot of pressure to let Deadly just farm by itself for like 20 minutes and just get ridiculously strong, and then Special could just carry in the meantime. Is there? Would you think you can kind of fill in that, or is there? Do you think going to be a bit of a change? How do you think it's going to work?
Well, I don't plan on like filling in anything
Mhm.
because I think our playstyles are way different. I think I'm way more aggressive than him. You know, I've gotten to watch his communication and how they play and all this. And I played some with like Taxer, and I got a feel for how the players are.
Mhm.
So I think I'm not gonna, yeah, like I said, I'm not gonna fill in anything. I'm kind of, I won't say demanding, but I tend to talk a lot, like mid late game, make plans and stuff. So I want to play like faster.
Mhm.
So if you say they just wanted to farm up and give time, that's kind of not how I've ever played it. Obviously on Mad Lions, we put a bit more pressure on mid than your average team does. I don't think that's gonna be the case now. Um, no, but I obviously I will need to fill in. I've had meetings with Swiffer, you know, filling me in on strategy and terminology and things to expect and whatnot. So I'm trying to think out or figure out my playstyle or how it's gonna be. But I think it all depends to see. Um, When we start playing a lot, you kind of get a feel for it after the first days. I feel like um, how the team is, what your role is, especially for me coming in, it's gonna be a big part for me. You know, trying to understand what's the best way for me to play with them. Um, but no, I'm not planning on trying to imitate Special or anything. I have my own ideas and I want to play my way, and we'll see what happens, right?
Mhm. Fair enough. I think I'd imagine being a mid laner is like such an important role, so like, you know, central to everything in the team. It's You've kind of got to be like that surely to be able to succeed. You've got to, you know, be comfortable playing how you want to play. I think if you're trying to adjust how you play to the rest of the team, then yes, you know, certain positions may be better, but for something like so central like that, it probably is quite important to have your own style, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
Speaking on the mid lane, one thing that's always like I think kind of interesting, especially from like a fan's point of view, is when a new split starts, when there's been like a bit of a gap like this, you're kind of not sure. Firstly, obviously, who's going to be stronger because we haven't seen people play,
hmm
but also sometimes even just like in terms of the meta, you don't really know what's going to be strong yet because we haven't seen people playing. Um, how do you think the meta would have changed? Because the last big tournament we saw was obviously U Masters, and the mid lane meta was like literally a snore fest. Let's be honest, it was just Azir
Unless you were leader, I think at one
yeah,
point.
it was like
I think that's just leader, isn't it?
yeah,
So
it was like pretty much Azir Corki every game. Even
hmm
the casters would talk about any Masters, just the saying for the observers not to look mid. Um, the only other thing that's really kicked off, well, one of the only other things is the mid-season cup, obviously with LCK and LPL. That
Yep.
started today. We didn't see any Azir, even only one Azir ban, and a couple of games of Corki, but a lot of different things. And it wasn't really like a clear, obvious, strong mid lane matchup that everyone was going for. What do you think is going to be the kind of main meta once the league does kick off in a couple of weeks, provided it doesn't change
Uh,
too much until then?
well, I think it's actually gonna be very scaly. I think you're going to see the Asir Corkis. You see a lot more tanks recently. You know, the ADC buffs coming in. Uh, I play a lot of solo queue, right? So, you know, there's way more Lulus, there are way more Jannas, way more Yumis.
mhm.
You know, it's the old comps with like a Maokai top and a Jarvan jungle, a Seer mid, Ezreal Yumi bot, right? These kind of comps, I think they're really strong, and a lot of people are going to do it. I mean, I'm not a fan of it personally, but that's how it's looking right now. Although I do think the best champs right now, like just the best champs in mid lane, period, is Syndra and LeBlanc. I think they're just the strongest. Um, so I think for sure they're gonna stay. But other than that, I think it's going to be a lot of Corki and Nasir,
Yeah.
especially with this mana immune Corki build is actually super strong. Um, but you might see, maybe it's not a good thing, but I think champs like Maokai and Sion mid are also good. Galio, TF's got a buff, and I see a lot more people playing him. But no, there's no crazy stuff going on.
Yeah.
So
I have a low key love for Galio in the mid lane. I don't know why. I just love that champion in the mid lane. The ult is great as well for Roman as well, but it's just I don't know. It's just a champion which really shouldn't. I wouldn't say shouldn't. Well, was never probably ideal to be played in the mid lane, but then actually it can now be a viable mid lane. I'm like, okay. It's like when I play League of Legends once every 2 weeks or something like that now, and actually play Sejuani wherever I want. So I'm just like, I just want to have a bit of fun, and that's what I feel like with Galio. Sometimes it's just a bit of fun.
Well, do you think the when you say about that it's going to be, well, you think it probably be a scaling meta? Could that even benefit XL? Because like we're saying that you're not going to, there's not going to be a carbon copy XL from Spring, but we do know obviously that Deadly is happy to scale up and farm up and be that late game carry. Do you think that could be a benefit XL if it is that kind of meta, seeing that he is comfortable playing like that?
I think so, yeah. I think one thing I kind of pride myself on is my champion pool, and I feel like I can confidently just play the Maokai, play the Ornn, play Cillian, Lulu, Karma mid if I have to Renite. So I feel like we get a lot of diversity in what we can do. Because I still think let's say one guy picks a Seer, right? Then Echo, really good. One guy picks Syndra, then Akali. You know, you can still do these champions, right? Um, so and I've played with Deadly. I think this guy's super good. So I think it could benefit us a lot to have this kind of meta for sure.
Hmm. Do you think then there are mid laners that could struggle if it does even end up like that extreme we said about maybe like Sion, Maokai mid? Because obviously mechanically, I'd imagine every mid laner playing in the NLC or in any ARL should be able to grasp the Maokai mechanics at least. But then it's kind of like maybe like what's the word, like not quite as appreciated talent to be able to, again, not mechanically playing, but like just to be that front line. It's like a kind of a different kind of a skill. We see a lot of top laners that are these carry top laners, even like Khan, for example, when he's playing on in China now, but he's one of these kind of players where he needs the resources. When he doesn't get them, he seems to struggle, or even just playing the kind of tankier champs just can't do it as well. And even for top laners, it's kind of a thing where to get a player that can do both is quite rare. So if those champions do start going in the mid lane, do you think there are players that could maybe struggle with that? Again, not mechanically, but just knowing the intricacies of being that front line and how far should you push it, where should you be standing, etc.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like you mentioned, it's a very underappreciated skill. Because let's say you're playing this unkillable Maokai, right? You know, there's a limit to how good you can play it mechanically, but then it's about your game sense, or I call it game sense at least. You know, you look at a team fight, enemy champions, your own champions, you need to think, what are they going to do to your carries? You know, and you need to always be ready to react and, peel properly and do the right things.
Yeah.
And I think that's super hard to do. And I think you can see a huge difference between, higher tier top players and lower tier. They play the same, Malphite Maokai, super, super easy to play, but the difference in how they perform is enormous. I think it's super hard to do properly.
Hmm.
And I think if this happens, or tanks get played, they're gonna struggle. But I don't think a lot of people are going to play tanks though. But I think or at least not in lower leagues. I think lower leagues is, I say lower leagues as European leagues or
Hmm.
European regional leagues, sorry. Um, People just tend to, go for the scaling, pick comfort, and I think it's kind of gonna stay the same.
Yeah.
But I think the best players will adapt to everything.
Cool. Yeah, even like just, yeah, it's tricky just knowing like if you are one of those big tanky CC bots, it's like do you dive in on their carry and try and CC them? Like if you dive in on their carry, suddenly your carry is exposed and you just get blown up elsewhere. So it's, yeah, like a lot of, like you say, like game sense of knowing where to be, what, and decision making really more than anything, I suppose.
Yeah, and that stuff you can't really talk about, I feel.
Mhm.
Like in the heat of the moment, you can't discuss this kind of stuff. It's
Yeah.
all up to the individual player.
Mhm.
It's the same like I think you can judge AD carries judging by how good they are at not dying. Like a lot of AD carries are insane mechanically, but they just get picked off and die in random positions. But the best, they just do not die. It's the same when I play against like Upset in solo queue. This guy just will not die no matter what I do,
Mhm.
right? But some other people who are insanely good individually, they will just walk up and die. And I feel like you can tell this difference. Maybe not as a casual viewer, but for sure professional players can really tell the difference between these kind of players.
Is
At
that why?
least I can.
Is that why Caps is back in the mid lane then?
I mean, I think it's less about Caps being. I actually no. You're making that point, right? Caps just dies.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's absolutely right. I think Perks was insane mid, but I mean Perks was top 3 AD carry world at some point on like Saya. This guy is so insane.
I don't know what you're talking about. I thought, it was always there was a spring split. I've just forgot at this point, and because I just like to think that Caps was always in the mid lane and Perks was always in the bot lane at this point, and that they never did that. Even though they attempted to say like, I get the attempt, they wanted to try something new, but I just didn't think it. They just looked like a worse squad, and it's kind of pointless to do that.
Yeah, I think it might even be Perks just enjoys mid lane more, maybe, and he wanted to try a split, see if it works. If not, he just takes the L and goes back to AD carry.
Yeah. But he's bloody good at it, so.
Yep.
Yeah, I
He
think
is.
they'll be a better team back again now.
It's kind of like when you have a job and then you have like you get told you're doing one certain thing, but then the boss realizes you're really good at something else, and so slowly pushes you to do that role. That is essentially what seems to be happening with Perks. He's like, oh yeah, I'll give it a try, and then he's actually turned out to be really good. He doesn't like it, but the boss kind of wants him to stay there at this point. It's like, no, this is your role now. You're really good at this. Stay there.
Yeah, probably that's a big part of it. But I think Perks just seems like a really good professional.
Mm-hmm.
Because like for me personally, if I didn't play mid lane, I don't think I would enjoy the game anymore after playing it for so long. But I fucking love playing mid lane, right? I don't think I could make that switch to AD carry professionally. But maybe it's the same, maybe it's not. But he was like, you know what? I'm gonna back off. I'm gonna go to AD carry. You can take my spot, even
And
though
I
he
think
played mid lane all the way.
And I think at that point, if you don't play to enjoy it, even at top level, or at any level really, if you're not playing to enjoy it, then you're never actually going to succeed in actually what you do. There's no player like really who has continually been the best and not enjoyed what they've done. And there's been times where they've liked it more than others, but you've always got to enjoy it. And at that point, he would still enjoy playing in that position or just playing that part of the team. There's always an aspect which you've got to kind of latch onto to carry you on, and that's just a motivational thing in the end.
Yeah, for sure.
So you said you wouldn't want to play any other role then. What happens like when?
No, I just said I wouldn't play AD carry.
Right.
I would consider like jungle, but that's it. I would never play bot lane. I hate it. It's so boring.
Okay, so what happens like XL qualify for Masters, and there's like the chance, that's you got the eyeballs on you, and then Deadly says, "Oh, Hatrixx, can we just swap for Masters? I don't want to play bot anymore."
I mean, if Deadly was insane at mid lane, like 20 times better, then I'd be like, fuck yeah, let's do it, Because it's probably for sure way different to play AD carry in solo queuing on competitive. But nah, I like my role. I prefer staying this way.
What is it about AD carry in particular then that would make you not want to play there?
Being so reliant on someone else. I want to be the sole reason that I fucked up. I want that to be myself. Obviously, that's not the case. It's a team game, right? I'm very involved with junglers and stuff like this. But I feel like it's hard for me to make things productive if I'm super reliant on other people all the time. I need to be kind of pushed myself and be held accountable, if that makes sense. I think like that's just kind of how mid lane is, because it's really important. If something goes wrong on the map, it's 80% of the time mid lane is in some way involved, because it's so central, right? If some guy gets dove, probably because I didn't recall in time, put that ward, did this, there's always something to blame me on. Well, not blame me, but that I can take from it rather.
Yeah, I suppose that's like especially relevant in solo queue. Then obviously, like you said, in scrims or something, it is a team game, and everyone will be a bit responsible for certain things. But then we're talking about looking at self improvement. If you're like playing solo queue with auto filled supports, and the lane goes to shit every game, then yeah, maybe it is hard to actually take improvement of it because it could be in like such a doom situation to start with.
Yeah, but solo queue and competitive, it's like two different games, to be honest. I've come to realize that over the years. You can't play the same way. Like I for sure never play the same way in competitive that I do in solo queue. if I want to win in solo queue. I will perma roam and I will do the dumb shit that would never work on stage, but I will just do it. But then if I try and do the same in solo queue, in competitive, you lose. You lose.
Yeah, but isn't that the perma roam? Isn't that the Doinby tactic?
Well, you could call it perma roam. I just think dude's really smart.
Yeah, fair enough.
But it's just a playstyle.
You talk about the difference between obviously solo queue and competitive, but what's kind of the difference between online and offline as well? Because obviously you've played some on offline and you've played on some on online. Do you find that there's a difference there? Because I know that there are certain players, some more recognizable than others, who have said that they struggled on offline, but there's also been some who said that they find it hard to actually get motivated online as well. So where do you find with that balance in terms of playing your games competitively online or offline?
Well, for me, it's not that much of a difference. I think I've gotten really good at like keeping a habit on game days. I just try and like prepare the same way every day, so it doesn't feel that much different. Obviously, offline, it's easier to fuck up or not make the right decisions because there's a lot of nerves, right? I've only
Mm.
been in like the big venues. Like I've never played offline like an LEC. It's obviously a lot of people, but it's not as packed, right? And it becomes a kind of a common thing. But when I play offline events, it's like roaring people. Like you can't hear anything. And I get really nervous, right? But I don't feel like there's a big difference for me in general. Um, I think if you or people who say they struggle to stay motivated online, it's I don't think you can really blame that on playing online. I think that's
Mhm.
something you need to figure out for yourself if you can't keep yourself motivated. Because I think it's such a huge part of the game, right? Like you have to play online, even if it's just solo queue. Like if you don't make it productive, then that's your problem. You need to fix it. So this whole like online versus offline thing, I don't really see it.
Um, you talked about, or you touched on like motivation there, and when we were watching the UKLC in spring, and XL were on like this ridiculous unbeaten run, we'd kind of talked about how hard it could be to keep players motivated when they're like clearly the best team like that, and when they eventually lost to Fnatic in the final, um, you thought maybe was it a motivation thing that they, who knows if even scrims had sort of started slacking a bit, um, or what could have caused a problem. If you're XL, now that you're there, if it's a similar sort of thing in terms of that initial run, and they, just winning every game back to back, back to back, what what are you doing to make sure that it doesn't drop off and no one does kind of slip up like that again?
I think it's hard to do, but I think it's just about not being or getting complacent, if that's the word.
Hmm.
Um, I think the biggest issue with winning every game is that you don't get used to losing. Because if you're on a losing spree, that sucks, you know. And if you win one game, lose one game, you kind of get used to how you feel and how the team like copes with it. But if you go on this unwinnable spree and suddenly you start losing games, right? Like they got reverse swept going into your masters, like that. If I was on that team, like I'm sure I'd take a hit too, you know.
Hmm.
Not in motivations, but just in general how I feel and think about the game. Uh, I think that's like the main problem of it, and probably the hardest thing to deal with.
So do you think if they'd have even just lost like one or two games in the regular season, do you think that might have not happened to Fnatic? Like if they were just a bit more used to it, and then once Fnatic took one game back, they could maybe sort of reset a bit easier.
I mean, maybe. But I don't think that it was that they freaked out and played terrible and all this. I think Fnatic played really good. I think XL played really good. Fnatic were better, in my opinion. And I think that's why they won. So I don't think them losing a game or losing 2 games in a row really, just messed with them so much mentally that they couldn't play. Um, but maybe I would say maybe if they had lost some games, then it would feel more natural, I guess. But it's really hard to say all these things. You can only speculate, right?
Hmm.
And I
Um,
think what an interesting point is because I was going to say that they weren't consistent, but they were consistent in the regular season when they went undefeated. But there was a point, obviously, when they took that hit, and then it wasn't just the reverse sweep at Fnatic Rising, because I think even going into the EU Masters, everybody was like, well, XL, yeah, they got reverse swept, but XL are probably the better side on paper, and were the better side on paper, to be honest. And then it continued again for them in EU Masters, and then they finally, got things back.
Yeah.
And then it kind of went off again a little bit in the knockouts. But that, they got to the knockouts. I think that was actually a good achievement for them just to have done that anyway at that point. And I think consistency is the wrong word, but it did just feel like if they weren't winning, they were losing. And I know that sounds really weird, but you can claw back sometimes. But we did feel that, especially in day one, in the first run around in EU Masters, that they just didn't feel like they knew what they were doing at that point. There wasn't really that much direction, and then they'd got that in the final round robin and had achieved something which we thought that they should have done. I contributed that really then to maybe like a lack of a sense of kind of who XL were at that time. And I'm glad that it didn't affect Special, because I thought Special was actually one of the best players in the tournament, especially in the mid lane, not in the tournament, in regular season. And then obviously that's helped him get into the LEC, and then that's put you in there as well. So are you hoping to kind of, just be a little bit more like keep that mind frame of, let's just keep improving, and even if we do lose, let's not lose 5 in a row. Let's just lose 1 and then win 2, win 4, and carry on that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the Special thing. Like you said, I kind of agree with you. He was one of the better players. But I think the reason why XL looked pretty bad first days is Special played bad. First days, I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. He played really bad, and then the next day he was popping off, and you can really see in how the team plays, right? Like you mentioned earlier, Sendo would hold his own. Special would kind of escort him into the mid-late game where Deadly will have more, he could impact the game a lot more. And I think they didn't have that right there, and then they end up getting lost, right? If something that, and that maybe comes from losing to Fnatic, right? You've done something that worked all split long. I'm not saying they were stomping every game super undefeated. Like there were some games it was pretty shaky, right? A lot of dumb shit happening. But that's normal, right? Everyone makes mistakes, but maybe just this actually hit them and they kind of fell down a bit. Just their identity as a team, like how are we supposed to play the game? Because it didn't work out suddenly. But I think by the end, like they looked way, way better for sure. And I think I wouldn't say only, but 80% of that is because of Special.
Well, like, was it? I don't know if it was the first win they. Oh no, I think it was the tiebreaker win. Whichever game Special was like just deleting everyone with Zoe. It was just like, clearly hard carry. It was nuts. Speaking of Special, so he's obviously gone up to the LEC roster, and they've swapped the top laner. So Expect has left. Is it Cries? Had come in from the Prime League.
Yeah, from UOL, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah.
From UOL.
How do you see those changes? Do you think that's an upgrade for the LEC roster? Where are they sort of headed, do you think? Because it was like kind of like a verging on playoffs team before. They kind of wanted to make a push and weren't quite there. Do you think they could maybe make a better run for playoffs this time around?
Yeah, for sure. Again, this is also something for me that's like kind of hard to know, but you have 2 Koreans, right? And Mickey and Expect. I think Expect were like up and down, but I think Mickey was generally pretty good. But I think communication is a huge part of it. I haven't played with a Korean myself, but I've heard it repetitively that when you play with Koreans, or not necessarily Koreans, but foreigners in general, or people who don't speak good English, it's really difficult to play the game properly. So for me, it's like hard to say what their weakness or strengths are. But I know Special talks a lot. Kreis is like a young rookie, but I played against this guy in solo queue. I watched him play. I've scrimmed against him. He's a beast, Like maybe it's like a breath of fresh air that they need, at least from top lane. Because I think Expect is like nothing like how Kreis plays. And having what I would guess is a more vocal mid laner with already a vocal jungler could really help them push forward, yeah.
I think, is there anything, Tom, any more topics you had in mind? Because I know, Hatrixx, I know you're like a bit pressed for time, and we can't really run over too late. So I think we're kind of like almost ready to start wrapping this one up. Is there anything you had, Tom, or anything you want to touch on Hatrixx?
Not that I can think of.
The only thing which I kind of want to touch on just a little bit is no, I've lost it. Never mind. I tried to think of a question. It's gone. It's gone. Never mind. Just end it.
I
That's
have
it.
got
Crumbled.
one more that's probably the most important one, because Clash is this weekend, and I usually play mid lane on my team.
Oh,
So who should I be playing?
in mid
'Cause-
lane
Yeah, considering
for
it's
Clash.
like tier 4 as well, so it's yeah, not necessarily like normal competitive meta,
Tier 4. What's that mean?
like the shit tier basically.
Oh,
Well, no,
well,
we're tier 3 actually in the most recent ones. It's like it's from like plat down to like low gold, high silver.
well, plat to low gold. I'm guessing there's gonna be a lot of carry mid laners. It's just always carry mid laners around there. They try to play Zed, Yasuo and stuff. I mean, if what I recommend people is just play the easy champs. Play the Lissandra, play Malzahar, play Annie, uh, and just you don't need to do anything. You just wait for the enemy team to run up and die.
Okay.
That's how I would win the tier 4 clash.
Mhm. Okay, sounds good. I'll keep that in mind then. And I'll check back. I'll let you know how it goes.
All right, sounds good, mate.
All right, cool. I think in that case then we may as well start wrapping this one up. So, thanks for coming on, Hatrixx.
Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Appreciate you coming on and yeah, sharing a bit of insight onto the new roster and the new league and everything. So yeah, for anyone that's watching live on Twitch, you can obviously follow us on there for the next episode. Should be quite a busy week. We've got another one hopefully lined up this weekend, another episode. So look out for that. Anyone that's listening later on YouTube, Spotify, you can obviously follow on all those platforms as well. For anyone that is watching the VOD or watching on Twitch, you can see all of our Twitters on the screen as well. So do drop us all a follow. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening.
All right, thanks, guys.
Cheers.